Welcome to Milestone Moments, the show where we explore the journeys that lead to success. I'm Sheila Slick, your host and founder of 5 Milestones. In every episode, we will bring you insights from the minds of entrepreneurs, leaders, and experts who will share not just their expertise, but the milestone moments that have reshaped their journeys and led to significant achievements. So if you're looking for motivation, you're in the right place. Subscribe now and discover the milestones that mark the path to success. Welcome to another episode of Milestone Moments in Business and Leadership. I'm Sheila Slick, your host, and today my special guest is Rebecca Gebhardt. She's a best-selling author, a former top 1% sales leader with over 20 years of experience leading sales teams that have generated over $50 million in revenue. Rebecca specializes in guiding emerging sales leaders through the transition from the sales leaderboard to leadership. Welcome to the show, Rebecca.
Thanks so much for having me, Sheila. I'm excited to have this conversation.
So tell me a little bit about how you got to doing this today.
I will give you the short version because 20 plus years that can be a long story. I got my start in sales when I was in college, and I'm the middle of 7 children. I was attending Marquette University, and I had to pay my own way through school. And I saw a straight commission job that said you make an average of $7,000 for the summer. You have to work 80 hours a week, but you can make money. And so that was my first introduction into sales. I was terrible, and then I got better. And then I started managing people. Then I started recruiting people. Went from that company to a sister company where I built an insurance agency. And so I would recruit, train, manage agents from several states around the country. And then I burnt out from that at age 33. As many people do who love their jobs, and those high performers were the ones that are at risk for burnout. So I was one of those that burnt out. Didn't quite know how to quit because I wasn't a quitter. But I was able to gracefully bow out and say, I'm going to stay home with my family, which I did for about 4 years. I was a very bad stay-at-home mom. I loved that time with my children, and but I was just, I don't know. I did a lot of personal development during that time. I had my COVID trauma, the stuff that the self-realization people went through of what am I doing with my life? I had that in my early 30s. And then I launched Rise Up Consulting, my consultancy, in 2018. And at first, I was focused on female entrepreneurs, how I can help people sell more. And then I got a huge influx of sales leaders, realized these coaching conversations, all of them were having the same problems, the same opportunities. I was on repeat. So I created a group program, which I trademarked. And then I realized I want to take this to corporations. So I fired all my coaching clients, which I loved dearly, but we kind of ran out of the contract, and I said, I'm not going to do coaching anymore. I'm going to work specifically with corporate sales leadership teams. And that's what we do. So we have an on-demand program for emerging sales leaders, and we also collaborate with the visionary sales leaders at organizations who know what their organization needs. They just need a subject matter expert and someone who can understand how to duplicate a system that takes the genius out of their head and kind of helps duplicate. So that's how I got to where I am. I have other stories to tell, but I don't think we have enough time for all of those.
Well, it's interesting. So when you started the coaching, was it women in sales, the ones that were you were coaching? Because you said you started with women, or was it a mix?
Yeah, no, it wasn't a mix. It was really women. That was where my heart was at the time, and still is. I mean, I love rooting for women and helping women succeed. But then I did get approached by men, and 80% of 80% of sales leaders are men. Sales is full of men. I'm like, well, this is really silly. I'm cutting out a huge target audience and people that can do really well because it wasn't a necessary niche that I needed to be in. I know some consultants that strictly focus on women, but yeah, I didn't. But it was just this evolution of referrals and then, hey, would you work with a man? I'm like, yeah, I actually work. I would. I work really well with men, So, and most of my clients now are men. Not all of them, but many of them are.
What would be like one main difference between the challenges that a man or a woman face when, they're in sales or sales leadership roles?
That can be very nuanced, and I don't have this is just a gut. This is my experience and from my heart and from my gut. There are issues that are unique to women and there's issues that are unique to men. I think women, instead of the conversation being around I'll share a story of this perspective. I had attended a conference that was focused on women, women going through different pivots in their life, and the women who got on stage were accomplished. But overall, the vibe of that conference was men are stupid. Men, they just go for things when they're not ready for them. And I'm like, we should take a page out of the men's playbook then. Like, you should go after something even when you're not 100% confident about it. I think that's why I started creating these programs because I needed them, right? And I'm like, if I can provide men or women some content that helps them get more competent, which leads to confidence, which leads to courage to go after that next role, that's all part of the process. And I needed that, so that I wanted to create that. But men in general will go after things when they're not 100% confident, and women just wait. And unless you actively work on that mindset, I think that's like a big one. There are some different social things with men and women, but I think it's very important for every woman to have a group of women to rely on, but make sure you are being mentored by at least one man. You are in a group with men, because your proximity and being in those groups, and there are men who will shut you out, but there's a lot of great men who will bring you in. And my career has personally been influenced by men who brought me into the fold and women, right? I think that might be a little bit different answer to your question, but it's just, I think we need to go, what's working instead of complaining and thinking the world's against us, which is not what you were asking, right? But I just think that mentality of being like, what do we have? The world's conspiring to help us. Who can we partner with, male or female, that can help us get to the next level?
So you state on your website that sales and sales leadership development is broken. I want to learn a little bit more about that.
It is broken. It's so broken. The more you get into some of the data on development, the more crazy it becomes, and the effectiveness of it is really broken. 70% of organizations view the effectiveness of their leadership development based on how participants feel, their reaction to the program, not what they learned, not what they're going to use, not how that connected to the results, but it's really broken. And sales, there's a lot of great sales trainings that could do a better job of being implemented into the organizations if their sales leaders were trained. And so that's one way that sales leadership is broken. One way to fix it is to take all the good stuff that's being taught in sales training and make sure that that person's direct sales leader is part of that, and they are coaching, and they're making those habits that they can actually apply the sales development that they just spent a ton of money on. Sales leadership is broken because it's just not done. I remember reading a stat from the Harvard Business Review, and they said that the average age someone receives their first leadership promotion is age 30, but their first leadership development is age 42. So that's 12 years of trial and error. That was on average. And I looked at that stat and I kind of I went down a, um, and I reflected a lot about that. And I went, I'm going to make this my niche, right? But then I looked at the data on sales leadership and couldn't find any. So our company did our own survey. 80% of sales leaders are given zero training once being promoted. So the status quo is severely broken. All of the research that's been done for 40 years says that the manager has the biggest impact over someone's success. And so we have this, you know what, if you figured out in sales, you're figured out as a leader, just work really hard. It's like, well, there's specific things that if you taught to every sales leader, but especially when they're new and they created good habits, that creates an ROI over someone's entire career. And so I feel very passionately about that. And that's why we've kind of gone all in with this. But it is, yeah, it's broken. The training's broken.
It's over a decade. I mean, that's just fascinating. I hear that, they go 10 years before receiving the training. And with leadership, I think sometimes, people get those positions. Maybe they broke, all these quotas. They were great sales people, but to be able to motivate, especially in a sales position, which is, kind of like cutthroat, you're having to meet these numbers or you're, not performing, that must be a challenge. All right. So in your consultancy, you focus on strength based goal setting and role alignment to allow people to show up as their best selves. And you use a Colby consulting or a Colby index, and you use a leadership profile circle. I wanted to learn more on your website. Can you tell us what these measure and what they do?
Yes. So I think that strength based goal setting is a competitive edge. Strength based sales coaching is a competitive edge. And the Colby Index and the Leadership Circle Profile are two assessments that I just got certified in Leadership Circle within the last year, but I've been a Colby certified consultant for several years. You want to make sure that they enjoy the work they do, they have the skills to do it, and it's a good match. And so the Colby Index is a way to judge how, or a way to assess, not judge, because they're all strengths no matter where you fall. So the short version of this is Colby figures out conative strengths, that what is someone's MO, their modus operandi? What is the way in which they do things when they care about something and they're free to be themselves? And there's three parts of the mind. There's think, feel, do. And the think assessments are like the Wonderlic test. We have IQ tests. We took standardized tests in school to show how smart we were. The feel part of the brain, there's assessments for that. There's DISC, the Enneagram, predictive index, lots of those. But the do part of the brain is subconscious. It's like this mental force. It's this innate talent. And the Colby Index is the only one that does that. And so if you have, in my world, if you have a salesperson who is selling a highly technical product, maybe they sell a medical device, right? Like this, they need to be hands-on. They need to, right? Because they're in the operating room with surgeons sometimes helping them. And they need to know every last detail. They need that. Someone like me, I'm not into the details. I was on a phone call yesterday with my assistant and I spelt that wrong. I said that it's like, there's always a mistake on something I do. And I'm like, whatever. That's why I have people around me who are into the details. I'm just moving too fast, So I would not be able to sell medical devices, not because I'm not smart, but because I'm not into the details that much. And I'm not a hands-on person. I'm a visualizer. There are some people who need to follow a process. And if you have someone who needs to follow a sales process, but that's not how they get their best results, they get their best results when they cut through, you're going to have a problem. And so the Colby Index is one of the only assessments you can actually give during an interview process because it doesn't it doesn't discriminate, inadvertently discriminate. So you can't use all assessments in the interview process. You can use them once you hire someone, but you can predict where someone needs to be successful. The leadership circle profile is about all of our strengths, but some strengths, when we work harder, they get in our way. And some strengths, when we use them, they help us scale. And the top half is if you score high, it's a 360-degree feedback. So on the top of the circle, if the people around you see as someone who is thriving and scaling, you're going to be up there. Or if they see you using your strengths and you get in your own way and you're surviving, you would have a lot filled in on the bottom half of the circle. And it has been proven, and that's more for executives and mid to senior level leaders would complete that. Anyone can take a Colby Index and anyone can take a leadership circle profile, but it's really meant for your leaders a little bit further up the ranks. But you can connect their creativity to how well the business is performing. So it has a correlation to how the leader uses their strengths and business metrics. And so it's really powerful. You can get someone on a leadership development plan. And what that does is it helps check your assumptions and biases and how you view the world. So is your operating system one that's focused on vision and purpose, or is your operating system focused on your identity and your anxiousness and your reactivity? So I'm not doing it justice explaining it like that. I know there's more information on the website and there's more information on both of their corporate websites about that. But, and I'm not an assessment snob. Those are just two that I'm certified in. I just think any assessment that people can take to gain better self-awareness and understand how they are perceived by the people around them helps them massively do their jobs better and help them progress further in their careers.
Absolutely. Without that feedback, you don't really have room to grow. Sometimes you don't know where you can improve or what you can do with those strengths. I would love to learn more about those. So, where can my listeners learn more about your programs, these assessments? Can you share?
Yeah, so we have several fun things happening over here at Rise Up Consulting. So my second book, Leaderboard to Leadership, How to Earn and Excel in Your First Sales Leadership Role, is going to be published probably by the time this podcast it gets out there. It'll already be on sale. But that is really for people who want to excel when they get into leadership, and for organizations really concerned about making sure they have a strong leadership bench. We have individual programs for emerging sales leaders and for leaders in general. We actually have two of them. And then we have a Rise Up the Ranks Academy that people can reach out to us. But all of that's on our website, riseupconsultinggroup.com. And then I live on LinkedIn typically, so people can connect with me there. I'm posting frequently and interacting with people, and I just love it because my curiosity gets fulfilled by a lot of the great content that's on LinkedIn.
So, what is your next milestone?
My next milestone is the publication of this book and then the continued expansion of our sales leadership programs. And so I'm going to be hiring more people to be facilitating those to help organizations and individual sales leaders be better people, be better leaders, lead with more purpose, and become more visionary so that it impacts their ability to recruit great people, their ability to retain that talent, and then increasing revenue along the way. So just a lot of expansion happening over here for my next move.
So, what one key piece of advice can you offer to a sales leader or an aspiring sales leader to meet or surpass their goals?
The advice I give is kind of our tagline here, and it's what I say to anyone, no matter if it doesn't matter where you are. If you want to succeed, you want to do the things that matter for the reasons that matter with the people that matter in a way that matters. And so this is really about focusing, right? There's so many distractions. We think what it would be nice or, what would give us validation really matters and it doesn't, And so getting really clear on what you want, why you want it, how to help other people get that, connecting great minds together to optimize teams. I mean, that's the stuff that matters. And so that line, do the things that matter for the reasons that matter with the people that matter in a way that matters is a really great gut check to go through those four different things and say, am I doing this? But if you do those four things consistently enough, you don't have to be perfect all the time. But if you do those four things consistently enough, you will be successful.
What a wonderful insight. Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.
And thank you to all my listeners for tuning in to another episode of Milestone Moments in Business and Leadership.